Simon O'Connor.
Mr. Speaker, as I begin, or before I begin, if I can indulge to mark the passing of Dame Thea Muldoon as the MP for Tamaki. I'm very conscious that Sir Robert looms large still, and those of us who have followed politics or knew him would know that Dame Thea played a significant role in his life, in the life of Tamaki and politics in New Zealand. In doing so, I acknowledge early on, of course, she was Lady Thea, but then took on a knighthood, or in her case, a dame in her own right, ended her days in Ōrākei in Tamaki peacefully at 87 years of age, and I would hope the House would join with me and others as we just pass our condolences to her family. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure to speak and to turn now for the short call to the Register of Pecuniary Interests of Judges Bill. I want to acknowledge Kennedy Graham from the Green Party who put this forward. I think all members genuinely and with great enthusiasm do put forward ideas in the House. This is an opportunity once in every 2 weeks to articulate views and ideas which are important to us. And Mr. Graham and I would probably disagree on many things, this included, but he has taken this through Select Committee and back here for a reading now in the House. But like other colleagues, I do not support the bill. I'm sure the intention is right, but the bill itself is not really where this Parliament needs to be. First and foremost, Chris Bishop in his contribution talked about comity. That's the balance, if you like, between the judicial and the parliamentary wings of our constitutional structure. And there does come a point where we as Parliament do not need to unnecessarily engage and have a part to interfere, if you like, with the judiciary. I think as I've read what the Select Committee has come up with, its reports, feedback I was getting from judges, lawyers, constituents of mine, they don't see this as a necessary bill. There are, in fact, a whole range of activities already which enable judges to recuse themselves where necessary. In fact, it's just part of civil society in its very basic structure that any of us who have a competing interest, a conflict of interest, would declare that and step back. As David Bennett mentioned in his oration earlier, yeah, very, very good oration. It's amazing. What he was saying there, that actually as politicians there is a right place for us to do our pecuniary interests, but I'd say even as politicians we can understand the dynamics which come with this. And I think fundamentally the judges of New Zealand do not require a pecuniary interest. And the main reason is, as I said, there are already avenues for this. The other is ultimately around control. It's the fundamental problem, and something we don't want in the judicial system is control that is not needed. First and foremost, we do not need our judges and judicial workers having to spend an enormous amount of time filling out forms and then trying to defend themselves from the various accusations, perceived or otherwise, around their interests. That is not helpful, not a good use of their time. That great principle that justice delayed is justice denied, and I think that came out very clearly from the Select Committee that was not something that was needed. The other element, and I mention again the word control, is it's very easy to take documents like this and to have the vexatious, the litigious start having a crack at people, to use the non-technical phrase. We do not need pecuniary interests for judges to basically be used by third parties, as David Bennett was saying, to attack judges, to then try and, I suppose, influence or have a say or to change the outcome of a court proceeding by attacking the judge or the bench on a whole range of perceived issues. It's just not helpful. And I do have to say, in a much broader sense than just this particular bill, and it does primarily come from the left, but not always, but that again, desire to control. It's always put under the notion of transparency, but really it's like, we want to know about you, how you're funded, who you talk to, who your friends are, where your family go, so we can ultimately have a crack at you. We're not going to ever argue the rational or substantial point, we're just going to have a crack at you and emotionally. And if you want a quick analogy of that, you only need look at the initial attack from Mr. Twyford on Alfred Naro tonight. Why talk substance when actually we'll just identify an issue and emotionally have a crack at you? That's not what we need in a good, transparent democracy. And I would finish by saying that New Zealand should be very proud of its transparent system. It doesn't come by signing meaningless UN documents. It comes from having a constitutional structure which works well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.